I didn't treat IIMs, and I would love to share this with others as well, that don't treat them like placement agencies. Because then your outcome is just related to which company you get into. Like your brand is forever, the job is temporary, right?
He does not need any introduction. I'm sure that you guys have read, tons of content that he has put up over the years on LinkedIn. He also has a YouTube channel now, and he also has a newsletter. And obviously, you guys know about his profile. He is an IIT Bombay, IIM Ahmedabad kid who then went to consulting and is now amongst the most influential voices in Indian VC at a remarkably young age. So, we are going to try and, cull out his life experiences and his career journey. So can I request Aviral to join me on stage, please? Thank you so much for making it, Aviral. I know you don't do this very often, but please settle down. So, Aviral, my first impression of you has always been your profile picture on various platforms. And it seems that you are quite openly proud of the fact that you are a nerd. So just tell us about your formative years. How was your childhood, and because of your social media posts, we know that your parents went to IIT, which is a very unique thing, because in the 90s, I don't think there were enough parents, you would have one parent, but you didn't have enough parents who would have gone to the IITs at that time, right? So just if you can give us some picture about your early years, and then we move on from there.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I think I'm more of a geek than a nerd. So a nerd is someone who doesn't get along with people socially. Obviously, that's not true for me. But I love technology, building stuff. Yeah, so thank you for the introduction. My parents are IIT Kanpur alums. And I grew up in a very open, liberal environment. I think the priority was learning over anything else, right? We were not, I've never been a materialistic person. Even today, I would have very few possessions, which are obviously electronic devices and books, but nothing more than that. So when I was very young, got introduced to Lego. It was super expensive in India, but my parents thought that, let's spend it on this kid, maybe something will come out of it. They also got a computer before we had a car.
Wow.
And I think it cost $1 lakh then. So clearly my parents were crazy or were making the right decisions. So I remember, many stories where I used to play on, there's this game called Logo, which was just up, down, left, right, and there'd be a turtle on the screen that would move.
This was that on BASIC?
On BASIC, correct. So this is 95, 96, right? And I'd do random stuff, like putting credit cards in the floppy drive and a bunch of randomness. So anyway, so early years, got exposed to computers, got exposed to Lego building, also books. In fact, my mom tells me this story where I was probably 2 or 3. I didn't know, obviously, how to read, but I would remember what my mom told me, and I would read the book, and I would flip the pages at the right time so that people would think that I'm actually reading the book. So it was quite crazy. And why I'm talking about books is because they're this constant in my life, probably my first love. I read 50, 60 books a year. In fact, on this trip, I've carried 3. So,
wow.
So yeah, books, building, and tech. 3 things started very early on. A lot of people tell me that IIT was either something that I was going to do, or I was just made to do, which are both wrong. I think the good thing and the bad thing about the IITs is that even if your parents are from there, it's not guaranteed you'll get in, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. You still have to clear your own entrance.
And I think if you're from a slightly privileged background, it's even harder because sometimes the hunger is not there and things like that, right? But for me, like there were places where there were a lot of interesting people. They were not these institutions. I know a lot of people who hold them like, wow, once you get into an IIT, your life is set. It was the biggest lies ever told, but still.
But was there any other option? So I understand
Yeah,
that.
there were options. In fact, when I was 7, I got an atlas on a CD, Encarta World Atlas, and I went crazy after it, like countries, capitals, things like that. I even wrote all of them on an Excel sheet. I still have it.
You know all the capitals of all the countries in the world.
I mean, I knew. Maybe I still do. I don't know.
Please make sure you quiz him at some point of time during the session today.
We can try. Yeah, so I actually wanted to be a historian or an archaeologist because I just loved this concept of understanding people. But by 7th, 8th grade, I was like, India में तो कुछ नहीं है ऐसा. you you have 3 options: engineering, becoming a doctor, and one of the above. These are the options you have. I think in 8th grade, I wasn't very clear क्या करना था. There was this one subject I hated, which was physics. I hated it like crazy. And I think in 10th grade, there was this question on the equations of motion. And I kept getting the displacement as negative. Sorry if I'm going too specific. And I'm like, ये distance negative कैसे होता है? And then I realized that the equation was about displacement and there's a direction involved, so it can actually be negative. And I'm like, this is a beautiful subject, I've just learned it wrong. So I went like really deep into physics, and from hating it, I started loving it. It's like this Bollywood movie, just that the person...
But you were self-taught, essentially.
Yeah, I mean like, there was no heroine, it was just physics, which I had a hate-love relationship with. So really liked physics, thought that maybe, I liked all subjects to be honest because I used to read so much. So started studying for science and thought that JEE made sense. Not because like my parents said kar lo, but I was like, I think kar sakta hu. Started preparing, I think mid of 11th. Got a rude shock when I realized that I was very underprepared. In fact, I thought it would be very easy, it was very hard. And I'd give all these talent search examinations and, I didn't really go to a coaching class. So you'd have these all India exams and I did very poorly. In fact, my JEE rank was better than all the ranks I ever got in any of these exams.
That's how it's supposed to be.
So I was like, अगर इतने कम लोगों में मेरा कुछ नहीं होने वाला है तो जब एग्ज़ाम होगा तो वैसे भी कुछ नहीं होने वाला है. And yeah, so I prepared, and I think the last 6-8 months I went like super crazy in 12th. I was really good. I love that time. In fact, I think whenever I want to get that energy, I remember those days.
Would you say that it was the hardest you ever worked?
I don't think I've worked very hard ever, to be honest. Sorry, but yeah, at least my parents say that, I don't know. So yeah, so those 6-8 months were great. I was like super focused. And I think that's what matters in life, if you get your focus right and you work towards it, it just works out. And I remember the JEE day, I'm not a person who panics, but I panicked because it was just like that moment that you had been building up for 2 years and that everyone talks about so much. That when it happened, I was like, I can't do this. And I thought that I'll not take the exam, but I went into the hall and I was like, I'm gone today. It's gone. All these months of effort are done. And then I think 20 minutes before, at 8:40, I suddenly just stopped giving a damn. And I think that's been a good pattern in my life. When you don't give a damn about something, it works out. So I think Shakespeare or someone said, you should prepare like it's your last day and expect like you have your whole life ahead, right? So I think it kind of played out well. So luckily got a decent rank, and I could like go literally anywhere. And physics, as I had said, was something I hated, and now I loved it. So I ended up taking a engineering physics at IIT Bombay. So from hating it to it becoming the core of what I was going to study for 4 years. So that was the early journey. All of this happened in Pune with a few years in Kanpur, where I'm like born, but I'm a Pune boy all in all. I'm still there actually.
So, how were the days at IIT? So, we had a lot of speakers here, and a lot of them say that their engineering days is what made them. And although, I mean, the MBA was a great return on time invested, but it was the engineering days that really are what make them at their core. So, is that the same for you as well?
So I think I was lucky enough to go to two good colleges. For me, like in undergrad, it was the people, and for my MBA, it was a place. So if I go back to IIT, I don't really connect that much because the people are not there. I mean, obviously, I look at my hostel and feel nostalgic. In fact, there's this funny thing that I've realized. Chichore was shot in Hostel 4, which is where I was, and 2 states were shot outside Dom 7, which I was. So I have 2 movies that captured my campus dorms forever, which is good. It's always the people, but in IIT it was more the people than the place. And I think it changed the way I looked at life in a big way.
Did you ever feel like you want to get into research, go abroad and maybe be a PhD? Because clearly, your curiosity would not have made India enough for you. So you would have wanted to go abroad. So when did you decide that, no, I want to kind of get into something more practical life, or real life business oriented rather than, given that you took up a subject that you got so passionate about. So
of course.
From there, obviously, there is a massive turn into what you're doing now.
Yeah. I thought that I'll do research, to be honest. Most of my friends from my department are at MIT, Harvard, Princeton, Berkeley, all these places. So clearly, I didn't do as well as them. But in my second year, I went on this internship to Sweden. If you're young and you can travel abroad, just do it. Your life changes. I think I matured a lot due to that experience. I was sitting and modeling some black hole, and I was like, I don't think I want to do this. I realized I drew my strength and energy from people. Although I think people would qualify me as an introvert, but I am MB. I don't mind being around people, but I won't seek them. So, but I like.
You want people to seek you.
I was like, people. I want to be with people. Want to build something with people around. And incidentally, just after I did my internship, there was this couple of seniors of mine who had started an educational magazine, and they were looking for an editor. And as you know, this writer was born very long ago, and they were like, do you want to come and edit our magazine? And I was like, sure. And we were, like you were saying, careers are important, right? In not tier 2 cities, but let's say like a Bhopal or a Indore, where people have access to money, and this is back in 2012, when the internet was just picking up, not everyone had it. We had like very high-speed LAN on campus, which was like a huge deal. People in Bombay knew about opportunities which people in Bhopal or Indore didn't.
Yep.
And we wanted to solve that gap through the magazine. Like tell them, hey, you can solve Rubik's Cubes for life, or you can play chess, or do robotics, things like that, right? Like I said, 2 careers ke alawa aur bhi cheezein. And that kind of took off. And I was like, I love this. We pitched in a business plan competition, which was Asia's largest. We won it. And I was like, maybe I like doing this. So that was the first startup that I did, and that bug stayed with me. I was like, maybe I think business is the right way to go. I got pretty obsessed with consulting in my 3rd year. In fact, I never joined a consulting firm. So I never worked at a consulting firm. And when you're in a good college, you are an insecure overachiever or an insecure achiever, right? And what happens with insecurity is that you stop using your own brain. So there's this herd mentality you see in especially like better colleges where everyone wants to do the same damn thing, right? It took me a while to get out of it, but like I was firmly in that social group where everyone wanted to get into consulting. And I think third year I was pretty set that I'll do business school, I'll do consulting. The question was where, right? Like I think a lot of people from my college wanted to go abroad, go to let's say Harvard or something. So yeah, I mean I'm at that crossroads in my third year, figuring it out.
But I mean, what excited you about consulting? Like, what information was given to you that made you feel like, यार ये बहुत सही चीज लग रही है, ये करनी चाहिए?
कोई इन्फॉर्मेशन नहीं दी थी. बहुत सारे कूल लोग जाते थे उधर. Best of campus bus, उसी लिए, right? Very simple, naive decision making. Obviously, they are very good at selling the role, right?
Absolutely.
One of the funny things that consulting firms do, and now when I think of it in hindsight, it's like really weird. They'd be like, exit options बहुत अच्छे हैं. And everyone's like, wow, that's so amazing. But if you think about it, they're telling you that you join us to leave us. Like, which firm sells that, right? It was so weird. And this exit option thing works because, when you're young, you've not decided, and you're like, maybe I'll get access to wonderful opportunities, so let me go here, there's a parking spot, and I'll figure it out. So that really, I think, is the key sell. Obviously, a lot of consulting firms talk about the travel and staying in amazing places, which for a young middle-class kid is like, wow. So I think that was really like very high cool quotient, the exit options and having a cool life. I think when you're a young 20-year-old, all these things are super attractive.
So first of all, what happened to that startup that you were a part of? Why did you all decide to close that down? And I guess you were also a regular writer on Quora. So when did that journey begin?
Yeah, so all of this happened at almost the same time. I started writing on Quora in 2012, same time. And then it was super interesting. Like there was a lot of intellectual discussions.
Before it became massy.
Yeah, before it became massy, and I left before that. But people would discuss differential equations, quadratic equations, life philosophy. It was damn exciting.
A history of the Indus civilization.
Yeah, all that stuff. So one of my seniors, he egged me like, I think you write well, kar de. And so I wrote on Quora, and you'll find my first Onset as 2 upvotes. I was like super proud. I'm like, wow, 2 people. They liked my answer. I don't even remember what it was on, some random thing. The startup, we started it, and then, as I said, my co-founders were seniors. They were actually like really senior. They were in the 5th year and 4th year. And then they got jobs at consulting firms, and they're like, ठीक है, छोड़ देते हैं. So that's what happened.
Consulting firm ने startup का गला घोटा basically.
Correct. And at that time, VCs and ये सब था नहीं.
And it's interesting that today it's the other way around.
It's the other way around, correct. So in 2012-13, all this ecosystem didn't exist. So it didn't seem like, we would have been an edtech startup, and
Absolutely.
I would have been a 20-year-old unicorn founder, who knows. But yeah, that went pretty quickly in a year. And I kept writing on Quora, started getting some momentum. I think it took me a while to get like 1,000, 5,000 followers, and then it kept, building. And I think for me the core was I wanted to demystify and remove the myths about the IITs, right? Like that was my core. Kyunki, like you said, तुम तो nerd हो. ऐसे बहुत सारे लोग IITians का बोलते हैं, right? And I was...
a nerd who does really cool things.
That's why I said geek. I qualified it. A lot of people thought कि IIT में सिर्फ nerds होते हैं. And I was not studying. So I wanted to personally change this view that IITians have fun, right? They do other things.
Yeah, and I think this was also before, for example, places like TVF, etc. came out. Because TVF obviously made it
EVF was coming out around the same
Same
time.
time,
Yeah,
correct.
they're seniors of mine. Maybe they also had the same motivation. I don't know. so, so I started talking about like what happens in IITs actually, and like there's a audience TAM, total addressable market, and people are just interested in the IITs. So that was good, and I was just being honest and authentic about it. So people.
So which was your highest read post का reach क्या था या upwards क्या था, if you remember anything?
It wasn't even related to IITs. It was, what's the weirdest situation in which you used a math equation?
Wow, interesting question.
And I can like tell you the answer. It's pretty straightforward. So I am a teetotaler, and I used to go with my friends as the guy who would look sober and get them back into campus. And we had 2 gates to come in. So if you were a group of 8, we would split into 4. And I obviously was one sober party ka leader. There were obviously drunk people with me. And I had to find the other person. And I think we were in our first year, so I asked my friends, who hasn't had alcohol? And 5 people raised their hands sounding super drunk, saying that I have not. And I'm like, how am I going to solve this problem? So I'm like, okay, what's the integral 0 to infinity e raised to minus x squared dx? 4 of them look at me as if like I said some random, just pulled out of my, and one person like root pi by 2, like chal. so, so that's how I figured, that's how I used maths to figure out who was not drunk. And I don't know, it, like a lot of people related to it because there were so many things to relate to. I remember that question a lot, but I think the one I'm most proud about is the one I wrote about my parents, which is still on my Quora profile.
I think there is one, I think on your LinkedIn profile about your mom.
Yes.
That
correct.
is separate.
That is separate.
Okay. So what is the reach like?
My mom's post, I think 10, 11 million views.
Wow.
It resonated so much, and like I just wrote it from my heart. So same with like the question on Quora was, how does it feel to have parents who are IITians, right? I think that maybe I was probably the only one who could answer that question. So, and I talked about all the things that I told you, right? Lego, computers, liberal environment, etc. So that answered it quite well, and it's one I'm most proud about. But I've written so much I don't actually remember anymore, which is a good thing. But yeah, I mean, these are.
So before we get into your IIM journey, one other question. I think your dad used to do some manufacturing related businesses.
Correct, yes.
So given that obviously you definitely had some kind of an engineering bent of mind initially, or actually engineering is not the right word, maybe a scientific bent of mind.
Right.
Didn't you ever feel like I want to create something physical?
Yeah, so good. I think, engineering physics is super abstract. We talk about quantum mechanics, relativity, what happens in outer space, वो सब चीज़ें. So I had lost touch with reality a long time ago, okay. So I was not really...
So you're always only in the realm of ideas.
Realm of ideas, very abstract. In fact, another question. Someone asked, what's the point of doing an MBA after you've done a BTech from an IIT, right? You took a seat away, right? And like that answer also did really well because I gave this example that you learn how to crawl, then you learn how to walk, then run, cycle, right? And it's not like you'll keep crawling for your whole life, but it was important as part of the journey, right? And I think that resonated with a lot of people because and I understood it as well, right? The engineering physics, maybe I don't use it today, but as you said, you're in the realm of ideas, abstract, right? It taught me how to think in a very abstract manner. And quantum mechanics, for example, is extremely high on thought experiments, right? So I think that those 3-4 years, they really changed the way I think. Also, I feel like when you go to IIT, ironically, people think that your hubris or arrogance increases, it decreases to the ground. Because you see so many talented people, like there's somebody better at you at everything and everything, right? There'll be a better football player, there'll be a better guitarist, There'll be someone who's better at acads, interns, work, everything, right? So I think you learn about the real world and you get a lot more humble. But yeah, the abstract nature of engineering physics was very helpful, in my opinion. I think it still helps me a lot in thinking in a different realm where you abstract from the world.
Yeah, and I guess given that eventually, now that you've become an investor, that interdisciplinary knowledge
Yes.
absolutely helps you every
Yeah,
single
like my
day.
dream is to invest in a quantum computing company so that I can, like maybe 20 years later, tell people that mera degree useful tha.
So I guess, I mean, after the JEE and IIT and all, once you decided to get into the IIMs, I'm assuming that the CAT would have been quite easy for you.
No.
No.
Again, like assumptions. Or maybe in my head it wasn't because I was looking at a different range, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, if you're saying that I wanted to get 100 percentile, then you're starting at a.
Yeah, I
most
lost-
people are happy to just get an interview call.
Yeah, I lost out by 0.01 percentile.
So
So sad. No, but I like it because it's imperfectly perfect. 100 would have not been nice. I don't think so. So I think that juncture. So in my second year, switching, like I was making lots of switches in my life in those 3 years in college. And I think when you're young, you're thinking about these things. In my third year, I was very hell-bent, like I said, to get into consulting and go to the US to business school. I think there was an important turning point for me there, which, I wrote an essay on India a few months ago called Long India. And that kind of stems from my, young 2021, where I was wondering where I want to be, right? And the natural answer was the US, because it seemed like it is a very large market and, super attractive. But I asked myself this question, you're 20 right now, when you will be 40, in 20 years, which country do you think you'll be in? And whatever route I took, the answer was India, right? And like I use very simple principles rather than like saying I'll forecast the market and all that stuff, right? Very simple. So if you look at population, right, that drives almost everything. So if you look at India's population in 2050, when I'll probably be like 55, 60, so you will see that there are 1 billion people in the Americas, 1 billion people in Europe, 4 in Africa, and 5 in Asia. And a large portion of that will be in India and China, right? To bet against Asia and India is to bet against humanity. Because if this large group of people is not able to do something meaningful, it's a huge percentage of the population, right? So naturally, we are going to, right? And if you nuance it a little bit, you look at India's population composition, there's a lot of young people like us. There's a lot of energy to build. There's a very old population in Europe and the Americas. In Asia and Africa, it's quite young. So my answer then was like, if I have to be in India in a couple of decades, why should I go to the US and come back? Especially because then I lose context about what's happening. And I see it with a lot of my friends who've gone there, studied, and are now coming back. And they're like, dude, you're clued in, can you please help us, right? I spoke at HBS like a couple of weeks back. The reason was the same, right? They're trying to understand the market. So I thought that India is the place to be, and I want to get into business school. A lot of my friends were like, why are you going to the IIMs, man? Go to HBS, you'll get in. But then I was like, nah, I want to get into the top IIMs. So that switch happened in my third year.
I think you often speak very highly of your time at B school.
Yes.
Why is that? And what did you love so much about the place?
So I didn't study in college, in undergrad, and I realized it was a mistake. So I overcorrected in B school. And I think that's what I really liked. So I went with a very clear thought process.
Consulting mein jana hai.
हाँ, consulting में जाना है. So I actually got a consulting offer in undergrad. I didn't take it. And
Where did you intern?
Morgan Stanley.
So you did an internship in finance.
Yeah, so that's another twist in my story. I got into consulting from undergrad. I didn't take up the job. A lot of people were pissed with me, including the firm I was going to join. but theek hai. It is what it is. I did reasonably well on the CAT. I made this Excel which people like even till yesterday keep asking for. I keep getting messages. Aviral, can you please, like, it comes Aviral, someone requested Aviral CAT preparation.xls because it seems like it's one of the best tools out there to prepare for the CAT in this 2012-13. So I had this Excel, like you were asking me about CAT, was it easy, right? And I'm a writer. So I go take my first mock. I get 96 percentile in quant and 82 percentile in verbal. And I thought that I know English. Ye kya hai? Right? And, and I was like so shocked. And you know, they said CAT is easy and things like that. But it's not that simple, right? It's actually a test of speed, accuracy, and judgment, more than actually knowing what's there, right? So the quant is very simple if you have time, and verbal is very simple if you have time, but you don't have time. So I realized like these three dimensions were super important, and I started training myself, you know, think like a mental athlete, and that's how, you know, you have to be a cold-blooded killer of questions, right? And I think one mistake which I made in the JEE was I was a little emotional about questions, especially in math, that if I couldn't solve them, I'd spend like minutes doing it. I was not like that in the CAT. I was like very clear. Clinical. Like, ये question नहीं आता है मुझे, I'm leaving it, right? So I take the CAT, I attempt 27 out of 30 in verbal. This is when there were 30 questions. And I attempt like, I think 26 in quant out of 30. And I tell my senior who's an IIMA, and he got like 99.8 something. He like, you are not getting in, no chance. Well, you've not attempted 30 in each, scope nahi hai. And I got like super demoralized. I'm like, kya bol rahe ho yaar? And then my result comes. And then I tell him. And then he's never spoke to me after that. so it was a big surprise for me because I had this expectation that it's going to go really badly. But as I said, I was very clinical. And I think I got all my answers right.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like it.
Yeah, like I scored the highest in verbal in India. So all my answers right. I left the ones that were supposed to be left. And yeah, I mean, I think that journey, which was not as long as JEE, but it was like 3-4 months. It was just like practice, and becoming really good at identifying what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, doing really well on your strengths, and at the end just dropping your weaknesses. Like, I never got para-jumbles. I would always mess them up. So when I saw the para-jumble in verbal, I'm like, main nahi kar raha hu. I left all the para-jumbles. Basically, the 3 questions I left were para-jumbles. I didn't do them. Because you're going to go wrong. So I didn't do them. So I think the CAT wasn't as simple as it sounds. Obviously, because I was targeting ABC and A specifically. So I needed to get a higher percentile, but you know, in the end, it worked out.
Your time at IIMA, you said you studied a lot. Did you also do any extracurrics or?
I did all my extracurrics in college. I did nothing in B school.
So in B school, you basically sat and studied?
Yeah, I mean, I went to class. That was a big leap, which I think if I take my attendance in undergrad, it was probably lower than 50%. Cumulative of 4 years, and in the last 2 years, it was probably sub 30. But in business school, you have to go to class, which is a good thing.
So essentially, IIMA's rigor got to you as well?
Yes, correct. It's inescapable, right? And I think because I was a fresh graduate, right? I didn't work before. I saw a lot of people who came from good companies, right? And I saw their work ethic, which in the IITs when there's no work ethic, right? And this shift, which I encapsulated, I think in one tweet or some answer, was that a 9+ GPA rank 3 in IIT is uncool, but a 3.6+ GPA rank 3 in IIMA is really cool, right? That transition happened, right? People started respecting you if you were good at academics, right? Especially if you were a nice person, helpful, and still did well. I think that changed. So the rigor got to me, and I think I learned how to manage my time, calendarize things, stuff like that. And I thoroughly enjoyed B school because I didn't treat IIMs, and I would love to share this with others as well, that don't treat them like placement agencies. Because then your outcome is just related to which company you get into. Like, your brand is forever, the job is temporary, right? And I go into the interview room and I tell them, yeah, I don't know finance. They're like, we know. Then I'm like, why are you? So they're like, why? They're like, let's see. So then I said, okay, I'm a smart guy. You give me anything that's non-finance, I'll do it.
Alt-Uni, which was launched about 20 months back, which is our alternative digital university where we help people get upskilled and we help them get ahead in their career. So if you're looking to get promoted, you're looking to transition from one career to another, or if you're just generally looking to be better at your job, there are a lot of things that you can look at Alt-Uni. And we also have a new product that we are launching via this season's Conversations Cafe, which is Club Alt-Uni, which is a unique closed network where you can sign up and essentially be abreast with what's happening in different domains, industries, and professions. And you get a chance to apply for various jobs that we curate for you. There are a lot of sessions that we are going to do. So there are at least 12 CXOs that we are going to get you to meet over the next few months. If you go on the Alt-Uni website, you'll find Club Alt-Uni. Currently, there is a wait list for this particular product, so you can apply for it.